Well, hello Internet, and welcome to part 9 of my C++ video tutorial series. You guys asked for more complex topics in this tutorial, and today I'm going to give them to you. I'm going to cover lambda expressions, sort, copy if, for each, transform, recursive lambda functions, and of course we're going to have a whole bunch of problems like always. Also, like always, all the code as well as a transcript of this video is available in the description underneath this video, and I have a lot to do, so let's get into it. Alright, so here we are inside of NetBeans. Of course, you can use any other IDE though. Alright, so basically, lambda expressions are going to make it easy to perform list operations normally in one line of code. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a function that we created earlier, which is generate random vector. And of course, you can either go and pause the video and type all this out, or you can get all the code. It's in the description, of course. So what I did here was I created an integer vector called vecval. And I generated random values inside of it, 10 to be exact, between the value of 1 and 50. That's what our custom function did, and if you haven't watched the previous tutorials, you probably should watch those. Otherwise, you will probably be confused. Alright, so what we're going to do here, first I'm going to show you how easy it is to go and sort a vector. So I'm going to go and get my vector, and I'm going to give it a reference to the beginning of the vector, and then I'm going to give it a reference to the end of our vector, and that's going to be what it's going to operate on. And then what I can do, this part right here is these square brackets are going to designate the beginning of a lambda expression. And it's like a function, an anonymous function, doesn't have a name. Okay, so it's going to receive parameters just like any other function might. And in between curly brackets, it's going to perform an operation. And the operation I want to perform here is what it's going to do is it's going to cycle through all the values inside of our list, and then it's going to check if one value is less than the other value, and then based off of that it is going to sort everything up. And I see that I got a bug here, so let's go in and throw the curly brackets where they're meant to be, and everything looks like it's fine now. Well, let's get rid of that, and we got this closed up, and that is closed up. Okay, so we can just do it. That's it. That's how we're going to sort this, and we can go and run it. Whoops, I made an error. I forgot to put the semicolon inside of there to close off that statement. All right, now we can run it. Oops, I guess I have to go and actually print out the vector though first. All right, so we're going to go in here and we're going to print out all our vector values. So I'm going to go auto, and I can just throw in anything that I want inside of here, and vec vals, and then we can go and print out all of the different values that we have inside of here. So we'll go value, and you know what, I'm also going to print out the vector before it was sorted, just to prove the fact that it indeed was not sorted prior. So we can go like this, and we can run it, and there you can see here is the vector before it was sorted, and then you can also see the vector once again after it was sorted. So just that one line of code, this right here, was able to go in and sort all our values. And of course, if you just go and switch out the direction of this guy, that's going to easily switch out this one right here. If this is greater than instead, that would allow us to sort in the opposite direction. So just a very, very simple expression here, or a lambda expression. And now what I want to do is show you another function that's going to allow us to perform operations like we would in other languages whenever we used filter, but in this situation we're going to use a function called copy if. Alright, so basically copy if, like I said, is going to basically work like filter does in other languages like Python. And what we're going to do is I'm going to create another vector, and it's going to be an integer vector as well. And let's say that I would want to take a vector and go and remove only the even values out of it, and I want to store them in another vector. How would I do that? Well, I'm going to come in and I'm going to go standard copy if, and it's going to copy things from one vector into another vector if they meet a condition. So pretty cool stuff, and it can be any condition you can ever imagine. So we're going to do, once again, all the parts that we're going to cycle through, and then what we're going to do is we are going to perform this back inserter. We're going to take a value and store it in our new vector values, even vector values vector, if it meets this condition, which is going to be defined by this lambda expression. So it's going to cycle through all those values, temporarily store them in the variable x, and any situation in which it returns a positive or true, it is going to store that value. So we're going to say anytime that we have a situation, let's go throw a semicolon here, and then let's close out that guy right there, and then the rest of it's perfectly fine. So anytime this condition right here is true, it is going to store that value that gave that true condition in the even vector values. So let's go and change this to even vector values and save it and run it. And you can see, well, we're going to print out all the different values. Let's go and shut this off here temporarily so we don't get confused by this, and throw that inside of there and run it again. And you can see that it took out only the even values inside of there, and of course it's not sorted because I didn't run the sort function on this. And if I run it again and run it again, you can see that it is going to continue to just give us the even values that it found inside of the vector. So you can go and play around with that and see if you can come up with other neat ways of messing around with copyIf. And now I'm going to show you how to easily sum a list of values inside of a vector. Okay, so if we want to sum these different values, we're going to use a function that is called for each, and it's going to cycle through all of our different values. So I'm going to create sum right now and give it a value of 0. And then I'm going to call for each, of course, and cycle through each of them. You'll be able to do anything. You can multiply, you can divide, you can do whatever you'd like. All right, so once again, we're going to go vector values, define the beginning of where we're going to start working with these values, and vector values end, of course, and then we're going to define what we want to happen. Now we're going to put an and symbol inside of here, and what that's going to do is allow us to capture all of the variables used in the body of our lambda expression by reference, and we're going to go and receive a value from our vector, of course, and then we're going to take that value and add it to sum and get that inside of there, and close off the curly brace and throw this right here, and then we can just come in here and print out sum just to see that that worked. So cout and sum, and then the sum variable, and there we go. And there we go. And you can see the sum comes out to 247. We can run it again. And because the vector values are going to be randomized, you can see that the sum also changes. All right, so there we go. I went and showed you 3 different ways of using lambda expressions. More are coming, but I thought it would be interesting now to go and cover a problem for you to solve. Okay, so basically what I want you to do is remember whenever we went through and we created a vector that was just evens. So we went and took all the values that were stored inside of vec_vals and we only got the evens. Well, what I want you to do is I want you to create a dynamic list that is going to be divisible by a value. So I'm going to start it, and then it'll be your job to go and figure out the rest of it. All right, so we're going to have a divisor, and we're going to go and create a new vector, which is going to be an integer, and vec_vals like this, and I'm going to call it vec_vals2, and then you're going to ask the user for what they want the list to be divisible by. So I'm just going to say list of values divisible by, and we can throw the end of that on there like that. And then of course you're going to ask them for input, or you're going to receive that input and store it in divisor like this. All right, and this comes up to the copy if part, which I'm going to see if you can figure that out. Now, the only major change here, and let's just go and print the previous copy if inside of here. Now, if you would want to get divisor inside of here to perform operations on it, you would have to come in here and go divisor like that. And this is inside of what is called the capture list right here. And this just allows us to go and bring in values outside of here into here so that we can perform operations on them. So now what I want you to do is to pause your video and see if you can figure out what you need to do, the one change you need to make to copy if to make it work with any divisor. Pretty simple problem, but give it a go. Alright, so basically, real simple. All you have to do is come over here and go divisor. The next problem will be more complicated, I promise. Alright, so there we went. We put divisor inside of there, and we can come in here, and we can run this. Whoops, even vector values. Oh, you might have got caught on that because I did. So let's come in here and change that to vector values. Or actually, you know what? You're going to change it to vector values 2, of course. Alright, so there we go. And then, of course, we're going to also have to come in and print out all of these values. So I'm going to go auto and val and vec values 2 and then print it out. So print out each of those values and there we are. All right, so let's run it. And it's going to say list of values divisible by. I'm going to put 2 inside of there. And you can see I got 46, 8, and 26. Let's run it again. Divisible by. And I'm going to put 3 inside of there. You can see I only got 42. We can run it again. And 3, and there we go. And we could run this as many times as we'd like to just to test out that it is actually working. Let's do this, see if we got anything divisible by 5. Yes, we did. All right, so pretty simple problem, but just wanted to start off simple. The next problem will be more complicated. And now what I want to do is show you how to multiply all values inside of a vector and then go and store them once again. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take all of the values in vector value and then we are going to store them in a brand new vector, and that is going to be called double vec. And let's come in and let's just change this right now. This is going to be double vec. Whoops, vec. There we are. Okay, so we're going to use our old buddy for each once again to come in here and do this. So we'll go for each and vector values. Again, we're going to use exactly the same thing. See, lambda expressions seem real complicated whenever you first use them, and then you realize, geez, they're doing the same thing just about the same way every single time. Just a couple little things change. Again, we're going to want to access the values inside of here, so we're going to go and throw an and symbol inside of there to get the reference for that. We're going to go and receive an x value, which is going to be a value outside or from our vector. And then what we want to do is we want to go double and vec and push back. That's how we add values to our vector. And we're going to take x from our vector we're working with, vec values, and then let's go and throw a semicolon inside of there, a curly bracket, and a parentheses, and close off that guy. Whoops, another one snuck in there somehow. Let's go and get rid of that parentheses. There we go. And everything looks fine. Let's run it. And you can see it prints out, goes and multiplies all the different values by 4. Well, we can get rid of this here if we want to verify that it actually worked. So let's get rid of that, like that, and run it. And here you can see that we have 29, and you can see we have 58 here, and there we have 40, and there we have 80. So you can see that it indeed doubled all of those values. So another neat things we can do with lambda expressions. And now what I want to show you how to do is how to perform operations using multiple different vectors. What I want to do is add values that are stored in 2 separate vectors and then save them into another one. All right, so what I want to do here is I'm going to have a vector. I'm going to just call this vector 1, and I'm going to go and give it 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if you have any problem doing that, that's because you do not have C++ properly set up. Here, I'll show you how to do this. I showed you how to do it last time, but I'm going to show you again. So we'll go into properties. I just right-clicked on that, and then you're going to come in here, and you're going to go C++ compiler, and then make sure this is set for version 14 of C++. See, standard equals C++ 14. Covered that last time, but just wanted to cover it one more time. Okay, and let's go and create 3 more vectors here. So I'm going to go get this one, and we can just go and get this one right here. We'll change this to 2. We'll just let those be exactly the same. This is going to be vector 3, and then I'm just going to go and give that 5 values inside of that. And then what we're going to use here now, remember, we're going to add these values together and store them in our brand new vector that we have here. And to do that, we're going to use a function that we saw a long time ago. It's called transform. So vector 1, look at this, we're doing the same thing again. All right, so vector 1 and vector 2. It's amazing how much power you have doing such similar things. Then what we're going to do is, whoops, this is, we're also going to come in and go and get vector, well, this is going to be vector 1. Get that out of there. And then we're going to go and get vector 2, begin, that. And then we're going to go and where we're going to store everything, which is going to be vector 3. And of course, we're going to store that at the beginning of that guy as well. And then we define what we're going to do. So we are going to go and receive 2 values. So we'll have int x, which is going to be the first value from our first vector. And then y is going to represent the other value inside of there. And then we're going to go return, and it's going to be x plus y, which are going to be those 2 values that we have there. And then we can close that guy off. And then what we're going to do is print out vector 3. So let's go and just steal this guy right here, throw it inside of there. This is going to be vector 3, of course. Save that right there. This automatically throws these parentheses inside of there. All right, so now I got all that set up, and we can run it. And whoops, got a little bug inside of here. It's this guy right here. Didn't notice that for loop was there. Let's save it, run it again. And there you can see it went and added up those 2 values, or all those 5 values, and then stored them inside of our vector, and then printed them out on our screen. All right, so some neat stuff. Now what I want to do is cover the ternary operator and how that works. Doesn't have anything really to do with lambda expressions, but it allows us to do other neat things with lambda expressions. And then we're going to have yet another problem. Okay, so basically a ternary operator works like a compact if-else statement. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to define an age, and I'm going to store one value in a boolean. Doesn't have to be a boolean, it can be anything. Can I vote is what I'm checking, so it doesn't have to be a boolean. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say can I vote is going to be equal to one thing or another depending upon a condition. So if the age of whoever this is greater than or equal to 18, well, that means that we want to store true inside of can I vote. Otherwise, if the condition is not true, we want to store false inside of it. Now, we want to show true or false in our output. Don't know if you remember how to do that. I'm going to show you again. So let's go set f standard iOS and bool alpha. That's going to, by default, say that any boolean is going to be displayed as true or false instead of 1 or 0. And then we're going to go and print out our information to show that this worked. And I'm going to say, can Tarek vote? And we're going to find out. And I'm going to say, can I vote? And I'll put that information. Let's see if I'm a lucky enough person to be able to vote. Let's run it. And you can see can Derek vote comes back as true. All right, so that's how a lambda expression works. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you a recursive lambda function that is going to operate using a ternary operator. Okay, so in the last tutorial, we covered recursive functions, and one of the things we did was we generated Fibonacci numbers. So what I want to do here, and this is show you how cool it is to go and use a recursive function inside of a lambda expression to also generate Fibonacci numbers. Now, Fibonacci numbers are, so let's say we have a function that is going to receive a value of 0. It's going to, of course, return 0. Let's go and create a couple of these just to refresh the old memory here. All right, so if we get a value of 1, it is going to return a value of 1, and then we are going to take the value here. If we give it a value of 2, it's going to say what, it's going to add these two values together, which is also going to give us a value of 1, and then if we add 3 inside of there, it's going to add the previous 2, which is going to give us a value of 2, and if we go and put 4 inside of here, it's going to give us a value of 2 plus 1, or 3, and 5 is going to give us a value of 5. Okay, so Fibonacci numbers. So what we want to do do is generate those using a lambda expression, and you're going to see why I taught you about ternary operators also at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go standard and function and int, and we're going to receive an integer here. Close this off, and then we will have fib, which is we are going to actually be calling a function on itself. And how you can do that is go and fib. Once again, inside of here, it's going to receive value n, and then we're going to have the actual calculations that are going to be taking place. So I'm going to say return n if the value is less than 2. In that situation, this is where you're going to see the ternary operator. So basically, if the value of n is less than 2, we are going to return n. Otherwise, we're going to perform a calculation to define our Fibonacci numbers. So we're going to take n minus 1, and then we are going to add that to fib once again, and n minus 2. And then we can close that off, and then we can close off our curly bracket, and then throw a semicolon inside of there after that. And go and throw this down to the next line just to save that. All right, so that is how we're able to create a recursive lambda function. So neat stuff. Now what we can do is we can actually call this function inside of here. So let's say we wanted to go and get the Fibonacci for the 4th index. How would we do it? Well, we would go fib and throw 4 inside of there, and then we would get or throw in a new line. All right, so there we go. We can run it, and you can see the Fibonacci value for the 4th index comes back as 3. And if you're in any way confused about how Fibonacci values are calculated, check out the previous tutorial. I cover them there in detail. And now what I want you to do for your problem is to figure out how to generate a list of Fibonacci values, or a vector full of Fibonacci values. And you're also going to allow the user to tell you how many they want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do part of the problem for you, and then you can go and pause the video and try to work your way through this. So we are going to have a vector, an integer vector, and it's going to be called list of fibs, kind of list of lies, but whatever. Okay, so we're going to go generate fib list. And here I'm just going to put 10 inside of there. So I'm going to say that I want it to generate 10 Fibonacci values. All right, so we got that set. And then we're going to come in and we are going to print them out. So we're going to go val. And I went and left this guy here for you, just so you could use it as a reference. So list of fibs, and then we can just print all of those out. So out and val, and and there we go. All right, so what you can do is you can pause your video and then figure out what you're gonna have to do in this function right here to make this work. All right, so the function prototype's pretty easy to figure out. What we're going to do is generate a vector, of course, and it's going to be an integer vector. That's what's going to be returned, and obviously the name is going to be generate fib list, and also it's going to receive an integer, which is going to be the max number of numbers that are going to be stored inside of there. There's actually a bunch of different ways of doing this, and if you want to share your version of this function, feel free to do so. All right, so what I'm going to do is come down here, paste that inside of there, and go and create this. So what do I need to do inside of my function? Well, I'm not going to try to get too complicated with this. I'm going to try to stay pretty straightforward. So I'm going to come in, and I'm of course going to create our vector, which is going to be our return value, and I'm going to just call this list of fibs as well. And then I'm going to go and use a while loop. So what does that mean? That means that we are going to have an index that is going to change values. And then inside of it, I'm going to go and get our Fibonacci values. So I'm going to go standard and function. Oops, you know what? I don't need to do that. I'm just going to copy this guy right here. So let's go and copy this right here. See, I said this problem wasn't that complicated. So let's just go and paste that inside of there. And then what we're going to be able to do is just generate a while loop, or create a while loop, I mean. And we're going to say while I is less than max nums, and throw this inside of here. Then we are going to go and add values to our list of fibs vector. And we're going to do that with pushback. And we can call fib and whatever the value of I is. And that's what will be added to that. And of course, we're going to also have to increment the value for I as we do this. And then after we have all of those all set up, we're going to be able to come in and go return list of fibs, and there we go. And now we can test it to see if it works. So let's go and run it. And there you can see that we got 0, 1, 2. You can see these are adding up, and 8, and 13, and 21, and 34. All right, so there you go, guys. There is a ton of information about lambda expressions and a whole bunch of other different functions that work with lambda expressions, do all kind of really cool things. And like always, please leave your questions and comments below. Otherwise, till next time.